Hello and welcome to the Xenogenesis podcast. In this episode 52, we're covering chapters 7 and 8 from Part 4 Home of Book 2 Adulthood-Rites of the Xenogenesis trilogy by Octavia E. Butler. This is the final episode covering Adulthood-Rites. The last two chapters.
Yeah, hi everyone. Oh, sorry.
Yeah, hi Michael.
Hello. Good, thank you. So I jumped in because I was excited about the whole, end of the book because I'm really looking forward to the next one.
Mm-hmm.
Just the whole, the excitement of the final book, but at the same time, it's already been 2 books.
Yeah, 52 episodes. A nice, neat year's worth of weeks. So
yeah, absolutely. It's just it's been a hell of a journey. Starting with the recordings, learning things, how to do, and then now we're on finish. We are finishing book 2. It's great.
2/3 of the way there.
Yeah.
So, what did you make of the wrap up of this book? Just a quick general.
Like you said in the last episode, it's like first book was sort of nicely contained within itself, and because it was successful, Octavia Butler started writing the second one, and then this one's more open-ended as a continuation for the next one, right? So it's sort of you perfectly describe how it felt like. Just like, oh, okay, they're just basically it's just this is just finished because she couldn't write it any thicker for the timing, because the publisher was like, no, you can't do it anymore. So then we're gonna split it in two books. So that's basically how it feels like.
There's a certain amount of narrative conclusion, but there's definitely a more open-ended feel at the end of this one than there is at the end of the first.
Yeah. I mean, to be fair, like. I don't know, obviously, what's going to happen in the new book, but this book has been literally Akin's life, right?
Yeah.
But let's maybe finish the book and then we can have a chapter discussion on that.
Shall we jump into your predictions for Chapter 7?
Yeah, absolutely. So, my Chapter 7 predictions were that, those men from earlier, so from the Chapter 6, and when they're trying to get into the Gabe's house, trying to do something, to Akin, release their frustration on a person or a being that can't do anything because they're literally paralyzed, I thought that they will try to do something. Like, try to raid the house at night and kill him, or, do something to him, and then maybe in the process something would happen to Tate and Gabe, right? Trying to defend Akin, knowing that he's the only way to for humanity to survive.
Yeah, and that more or less plays out, right? Someone, attacks the house in an interesting way.
I mean, yeah. I guess it's let's get to it, I guess, and then we can have a more of a discussion. Like, so in Chapter 7, we start with Akin awakening in the house, actually being on fire. That's the reason why we know what they did. As he describes, initially the sound reminded him of rain, but then the smoke scent came in, making him realize that the house was actually on fire. And to be fair, that's probably the worst way. It is probably the worst way to go.
It's up there. Yep.
Yeah, because I mean, I don't know who established that, but on the pain scale, being burned alive is the top of the top. So
yeah, I mean, I think you usually asphyxiate first.
I mean, yes, if you're lucky. Fire. If you're lucky, yes. But yeah. So I don't think it was it would be a nice way to go if given the choice.
Not top of my list.
But yeah, it was dark and no one was with around Akin. Initially, he sort of remember when he woke up, he realized that like actually Macy Wilton was with him with a gun, a double-barreled gun that Akin has never seen before. But he left to investigate when he heard some strange noises outside of the house.
Fun fact about me: only ever gun I fired was a double-barreled shotgun, a vertically stacked double-barreled one. They're quite interesting.
What do you mean?
The classic double-barreled is like side by side.
Yes.
But the one I fired was stacked on top.
Ah, okay. I see.
Yeah.
Oh my god, how was it?
Yeah. Quite fun. Clay pigeon shooting.
Okay. How did the recoil? How did it feel?
As long as you hold the gun right against your shoulder, so it's not actually correctly rather than right against, right, then it's fine, right?
Okay. I see. That's awesome. I want to go to one day to a shooting range or something to see how it actually feels, But anyway,
that's good fun actually.
Yeah,
and quite a lot of them up in Scotland. So.
Oh, okay. I need to check out then. But yeah. So Macy Wilton actually heard some noises and went to investigate, but now he's gone, and we don't know how much time has passed since he's gone. But now Akin could hear some whispers of people outside speaking about throwing something on the walls and the porch of the house, most likely a flammable liquid, now considering the fact that the building was on fire. One of the people was getting closer towards the window where Akin was lying underneath, and we know that the person stumbled and fell, and Akin could tell that they must have been drunk, and the person, based on the sounds that they made, was one of the people, specifically the person who was trying to get past Gait on the day before. And the other person, in fact, who was talking to the man was Neci, our good old friend Neci, who tried to scalp Amma Shkacht, now was actually trying to murder Akin. So
I thought you'd enjoy the return of.
I'll enjoy return of the characters we all hate. So, yeah, Akin was still confused with the fact that where's Macy or Gait or Tatus, because he was all alone. How could there be so much fire and no one waking up? And he started to shout Tate and Gabe's names, but trying to move, but no one was coming. Eventually, the fire made into his room, and the smoke started to accumulate more and more. Initially choking Akin, but then he discovered that during his metamorphosis, he had another orifice around his throat, as Octavia calls it, a Sair at his throat that. So he could breathe through that, and the tentacles that were surrounding the opening allowed to filter the smoke from the air, so it allowed him to breathe a bit easier. But nonetheless, there was no one coming to the rescue, and if he died, well, humanity's chances to survive as humanity would be gone.
Yep, so Neci, in her desire to keep humanity going, added arsonist to her resume and potentially doomed
murderer. Yeah. I mean, to be honest, that lady was a psychopath from the very beginning. If you thought that scalping the girls was they will not remember it when they grow older, it's just argument is sufficient enough. That just proves that this person should have been she should have been one stolen by the raids. Not kidnapped by the raids, not anybody else.
And this Sair orifice that Akin has, we couldn't find anywhere where that's a real word. We think it's like a new coinage.
Yeah, by Octavia Butler. Yeah.
And also, it seems to be doing fairly impressive filtering.
Actually, that's the thing. It's. I mean, the particles of the smoke. I can imagine maybe it's stopping some of the ash floating in the air, but particles of the smoke burning be quite small, to be filtered out.
They're pretty varied. There's some big ones, but there's quite a lot of the PM 2.5 kind of sub 2.5 micrometer diameter particles.
Yep.
A lot of stuff in kind of the 1 micrometer range, which means it's probably got filtering that's sort of roughly on par with an N95. Now that everyone knows what those are.
I see why you pointed out. Like, yes, now I think everybody who listens will know what they are. No, but honestly, that's pretty impressive, isn't it? Like, it just feels. But then again,
it'd be quite nice.
But then again, like, I mean, if an Oankali can make a orifice, a hole within their body just like that to give birth anywhere on their body, then at this point it doesn't, it's not really that surprising, is it?
Yeah, but it's not going to insulate him from all the smoke particles for long, right? So it's
absolutely
still going to be in trouble.
Yeah, plus also the accumulation of carbon dioxide. I mean, unless and carbon monoxide, depending on how well the wood is burning of in the house. But I wonder. That's an interesting topic, because we know that the Oankali can breathe out underwater, right? They can actually take oxygen out of from the water, and we know that there's not that much oxygen dissolved in water for survival. So it means that the oxygen required for their survival is actually the amount of oxygen they need is lower than the human, right?
Yeah, probably relatively tolerant of low oxygen environments.
Yeah, so
if there's a lot of carbon monoxide, that still might be a problem for them.
Yes, yeah, that mean. But then again, like with actually though, that's an interesting fact, because when carbon monoxide binds to the hemoglobin, the iron in the hemoglobin molecule, it actually binds in a way that is irreversible.
Yeah.
So if the Oankali have the same sort of circulatory system as we do, or similar in some way, that would mean that they would have to make their bodies to break down the hemoglobin in their body quickly, so that they can remake more red blood cells to like catch more oxygen to compensate for that. Because I cannot imagine them being able to recycle that, because it is a covalent bond. I mean, unless they can they have some enzymes that can catalyze the breaking of the oxygen from the iron, but that I don't know.
That'd be pretty tricky to do, I think. Yeah. There's a decent chance they'd have to recycle their hemoglobin equivalent. It's an interesting. Do we ever get an account of what color their blood is?
No, I don't think so. Although
I've seen them bleed.
Yeah, we were told they were bleeding because Nikanj in the book 1 got hit by a machete by, I don't remember what was his name, another psycho. But
there was quite a serious injury.
Yes.
I think it was also red, right? But I was just thinking, because we do have a couple of organisms with copper-based heme-like groups, the sort of equivalent, like horseshoe crabs. That, use
and
different oxygen carrier.
Basically their blood is blue because of the copper in it. But I don't know. Actually, I really don't know. We would need to check the book 1 again and see if there's a description. Yeah. But yeah, that's an interesting aspect, that like one, Oankali need less oxygen, obviously, and two, they must have some system that helps them to counter the poisoning with carbon monoxide, because otherwise Akin would be probably gone really quickly if he stayed in that room any longer.
Yeah.
But yeah, going back to the book, so Akin tried to shouting again. But now he was choking himself because he had two orifices and he didn't really know which one, how to use them simultaneously. Since one was for talking, the other one was breathing.
He's still like learning the interface to his new post-metamorphosis body.
Yeah. Yeah, that's pretty crazy. Like you breathe with your mouth, and then suddenly, like, basically, as if you had tracheotomy. Is that how do you pronounce it? Tracheotomy?
I think it's a tracheotomy, right?
Yeah,
where they cut the
tracheotomy.
hole.
Yeah, when you make a hole in your throat, and then, like, if you want to speak, you have to close that hole to actually speak. Otherwise, the air doesn't go through your vocal cords. So, but then him forgetting that he shouldn't be breathing through his mouth. I can imagine, like, this is like, why am I choking? Oh yeah, because I'm breathing with my mouth when I shouldn't have. But yeah, eventually Akin managed to move enough to fall off the bed, like just roll off the bed. And once he was on the floor, he tried to roll towards the door, but then stopped because he felt vibrations of the floor. And he knew that someone was coming towards him. And once they were in a room, he recognized that it was Gabe's footsteps. He shouted to get his attention. And, when Gabe located him, he quickly grabbed him, threw him over his shoulder. And as they were escaping, they fell once, Gabe coughing, seared by the heat, but then stood up again and grabbed Akin, ran towards the end of back door, kicked open it, and then just lunged out, outside of to the outside, and still on fire. So at the time, Gabe had to drop Akin again. I mean, the amount of time Akin's been dropped on the ground. But then there was a reason, because he needed to roll himself around to put out the fire. So then, eventually, once the fire was put down, put out, Gabe, lifted Akin, and then they started moving towards the unknown direction. And when asked where they were going, didn't get any answer, because Gabe seemed to be focused only to moving forward. One, because of the pain, and two, because the shortening of the breath, breathing all that smoke, and being set on fire is probably good enough to, like, there's one task moving forward, and that's what he should focus on, right?
Yeah. Smoking inhalation's no joke.
Yeah, it is really nasty. I mean, like, you can tell, like, if you have a campfire and then suddenly smoke gets into your face, it's just like, that's enough for you to choke enough. And imagine, like, being in the room that's basically filled with smoke. So
yeah, it's an interesting one with like wood fires, right? Because humans, we have like a weird affinity for wood fires. Like,
the smell, right?
Yeah, there's some, like, deep evolutionary memory of like, fire is home.
Yes.
But, like, yeah, they're terrible environmentally, and for, like, if you're smelling the wood smoke, you're breathing in particles that are not great for your lungs, even though it smells great. It's kind of annoying.
Yes, absolutely. Even though that tasty steak or whatever corn on the straight from fire would taste amazing with the whatever wood, the oak or whatever you can maybe using for burning burning on the campfire, but realistically, it's not good to breathe that smoke in.
Yeah.
But yeah. As they were walking, suddenly Gabe fell again, but this time on top of Akin. So Akin quickly locked himself with the man and paralyzed his movements. He then told the man not to move so that he can heal him. His lungs were severely damaged, and the burns on him must have been very painful. Although Gabe, like a man, didn't say anything, obviously. No complaints, just keep moving forward. Luckily for them, they were surrounded by cornfields, so nobody could spot them. Unfortunately, though, it was a dry season and fire was spreading fast. Like, not from just on the building, but from building to building and on the area around. So they were in danger, not only from the fire, but also they could hear people pursuing them. So
pursuing them, like the town's on fire. People,
yeah, exactly.
Have more pressing issues.
Yeah, exactly. Akim told him, though, that they are going to be busy trying to put the fire out, so he should focus on staying quiet while Akin is healing him. Here's a excerpt from book. I won't make you sleep, so you might feel something, but I won't hurt you. I heard it so bad already, I probably wouldn't know if you did. Akin interrupted the messages of pain that Gabe's nerves were sending to his brain and encouraged his brain to secrete specific endorphins. Gabe gasped when the pain was suddenly gone, but it must have been comforting, but for Akin it was torture because he felt the pain now. But eventually, he also cut away that pain, and both of them didn't feel any discomfort, and Akin could focus on the healing.
I wonder if Gabe was still getting that. that weird thing where you have a local anesthetic and you can still
feel the touch,
like feel what they're doing, but it doesn't hurt. That's very
No, I absolutely know what you mean. Yeah. That feel like, oh, that feel touch. I just felt it, and you're like, oh, really? You shouldn't be like, I'm literally touching your gut, and like type of thing.
Yep, that's a very strange sensation. This should definitely hurt.
that I should be screaming in pain, but I don't feel anything. That's interesting. That's really like, speaking of that, like the most weird, bizarre it must be when they're doing brain surgeries, and like those when you have to be awakened. And you'll be awake, and then like you see on the screen, like you can see they're touching your brain, but obviously brain doesn't have any nerve endings. So the only anesthetic you're given is not to feel pain. So, but like they're still touching your flesh, and you're just like, they're touching you basically.
Yeah, and they just like poke around in there with a little like probe thing, like for I think they've done it for things like people who have a particular skill and they want to make sure they don't damage the part of their brain that does the skill, right? So it's things like they have like a guy playing a violin while he's having brain surgery, so they can make sure they don't wreck his ability to play the violin.
It's like, it's pretty crazy. Like for me, this is the most mind destroying idea that like people doing surgery on your brain, that very organ that basically defines who you are, and any wrong movement and it's gone. You're gone. Something's going to happen, and it will affect you forever. Yeah,
that's just very surreal thing, and the kind of like like trial and error nature of that is just so disturbing.
I read a book about from a neurosurgeon. His name was, give me a second.
I think you mentioned him before.
Yeah, I did definitely mention him before. What was his name? Henry Marsh, Do Not Harm. Story of Life, Death, and Brain Surgery. That's the one I mentioned before, and he mentions about the whole idea of like new brain surgeons, and like the horrifying feeling that like you open the brain or do something with nerves, and like people don't trust like young surgeons, obviously, but we need people to get experience, to have more neurosurgeons. And then he talks about the whole idea, for example, of a young neurosurgeon, for example, doing some sort of easy surgery that technically should be on like the spinal cord, and suddenly pulls out a nerve, and the doctor just like, as the doctor walks in, he just sees that, and he's just like, what the fuck have you done, type of thing.
Okay. It's a super hard thing to practice, even if you were doing it on animals as well, right? Especially for something like for like a cognitive ability, right? You can't like keep a sheep awake and check if it can still play the violin.
Yeah, exactly. So it's just like reading that book just really makes you realize that yes, one way you do want to have a surgeon who is experienced, but then again, you need to have a surgeon that has experienced that, and we need more neurosurgeons that can experience the surgery, like doing those surgeries, type of thing. And it's just like, it is scary. Like honestly, this is one of those things that I feel like it's super scary. And being, even if imagining trying to put yourself in that position, like, I don't know, it's like, obviously I would want to have the best surgeon to work on me, but at the same time, knowing what I know, I would also want like new, like fresh neurosurgeons also get experience, right? But yeah, it's that's
one of those. I don't know, like maybe that's one of those. Don't tell me too much about what exactly the structure of your intern plan.
Yes, exactly. Maybe don't tell us, just
maintaining my calm.
Yeah. Yes, exactly.
During this whole thing.
Yeah, it's just better. Don't tell us who is going to do it. Just tell us, it's going to be the best of the best, and just whatever.
Yeah, so let me know the senior guys in the room.
Yeah. Exactly.
And he's keeping a close eye on anyone who needs to learn.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So yeah, but anyway, going back to Akin, and Gabe. So as they were, Akin was healing Gabe. Gabe's lungs started to heal, and burned flesh started to slough off. Like, oh, imagine, like, can you imagine like having an arm, like for example, burn on your arm, and suddenly there's just like slime coming down. It's just the waste, the tissue being like, he rejected that.
Yeah, it's like an accelerated wound healing process, right? I suppose. So you get all that kind of, like layer of scabbing and various ooze. That's the scientific term.
Tasty. But yeah. With the tissue starting to slough off, and then Gabe basically would need food and drink very soon, but at least he was healed enough not to die anytime soon as well. So, and just as Akin was finishing, Gabe heard footsteps, and Akin immediately recognized them as belonging to Gilbert Sen. And as they were staying quiet, hoping that he would miss them, unfortunately he stumbled upon them.
This ability that Akin has to just recognize people from their footsteps is actually pretty cool.
I know, and also he only heard his footstep like when he was young, and he still remembered that, it was him still.
Yeah, it was like 20 years ago.
It's pretty crazy. Like, I mean, they do have the memory of everything, so...
the memory of everything plus, like, gate recognition hearing.
I mean, to be fair, like, there is in the... artificial recognition of people, right? Even if they were like masks or something, Gait is enough to actually recognize them as well. It's one of the factors that's actually quite individual for people. So
yep, if you want to avoid the Gait recognition, you can't just cover your face with a hat with like some infrared LEDs under the brim to protect your face. You gotta walk funny, like in Dune.
Yeah, exactly. And also, I would say wear like a very puffy dress so that it hides how you're walking, basically. But yeah. Gabe and Akin both sat up and started a conversation with Gilbert. And Gilbert asked Gabe like if he was hurt, but Gabe told him not anymore, thanks to Akin. Gil was sorry for the fire because they would never have burned his house. But for Gabe, for all he knew, it was as if he did it anyway. But Akin jumped in saying that it was actually Neci or Neci, whatever their name is, the psycho, and the man who tried to get into his house. And Gilbert told Akin to shut up. But Gabe told him that if he dies, the whole humanity dies, And Gilbert responds by saying that Dave will die anyway. And when Gabe mentions Mars, Akin realizes that Gilbert doesn't believe. He believes your Mars idea is a trick. A way of gathering in the resistors easily to use them on the ship or in the Oankali villages on Earth. A lot of people feel that way. This is my world, Gilbert Chen said. I was born here and I'll die here. And if I can't have fully human children, I'll have no children at all.
Which is exactly what we expected would be the attitude of
a
subset of the people.
Yeah. And, but the fact is that like, it's a really stupid way of thinking, right? Like, the thing is like a way of gathering in the resistors easily to use them on the ship or the Oankali villages. Like, the Oankali could have done it anytime they wanted. Like, they would literally just put you to sleep. You'd even not notice when they come for you. Like, what the hell are you on about, man?
It's another one of these, like, I can kind of, I get where he's coming from, but he has to have this assumption that the Oankali are just vastly less in control than they actually are. He has to be in denial about that before he can get to this place.
Yeah. And, this man is also the man who also believed that, scarring Amashkak was okay to do, so just to have children. So, okay, cool, man. But Akin does tell him that Mars is not for him. It is not for anyone who doesn't want it, because it will be a hard work, risk, and challenge. And it's not for people who want Earth, because it will never be Earth. Gilbert thinks that Akin is trying to influence his decision by using some sort of childish psychology, but Akin basically tells him, I'm simply stating the truth, No one will go to Mars if he dies here, so you have a decision. And that stops the man in his tracks. After some time, eventually he just turns around and goes back towards the burning village.
Yeah, so there's enough doubt there that he won't take that risk.
Yeah. And the chapter ends with Gabe saying that if that indeed was psychology, it was incredible. But Akin saying that was a fact, and that means Gabe is yeah, I was afraid so. And Gabe tells Akin that he's too valuable now to take such risks anymore, and they should go where Tate is. And the chapter ends basically.
Yeah, so we've got this some arson and an escape.
Yeah, basically, yeah. Some action, some tension, and now they're on the way back to a assembly point.
Yep.
In case of fire, please head towards this forest to the assembly point 5. Thank you. In a calm and organized manner, please do not panic. Follow the people in the yellow vests.
Yeah, I don't know if they'll have been able to have pulled off high vis just yet.
But yeah, honestly, the whole I think at this point Akin is right. It's not the place for them. Mars is not for those people. If they want to die on Earth, that's their choice, and they should just stay where they are, waste the remaining of their lives.
Yeah, like we said, we're kind of expecting that schism, right? It's kind of inevitable.
Yeah. So, there will be definitely some people that want to join, and they will be coming to join Akin, but a lot of them probably will just give themselves out. It's going to be literally Fallout type of thing, those remnants are gonna make raiders, basically.
Mm-hmm.
Neci's gonna shave her head and show in the those Fallout New Vegas type of haircuts.
Yeah, a bit of Mad Max.
Yeah, basically, scalping children. Damn woman.
But more jungle, right?
Yes, more jungle type of.
Maybe a bit Apocalypto. You ever seen that film?
No, I don't think so.
It's a crazy movie. It has some historical inaccuracies, but it's also it's a very compelling watch.
Okay.
Very action intense.
Okay. Need to check it out then. But yeah, I guess let's go to my chapter 8 predictions.
Chapter 8, yeah.
So I thought that Gabe and Akin will reconvene with Tate, and as they are with whatever other people are there waiting, they will start moving towards village law. I wrote Phoenix, but that's a mistake. I meant law.
Okay.
But someone actually intercepts their sort of journey, the last sort of tension type of thing,
okay.
That points a gun at them, be where the hell do you think you're going type of thing, and someone dies basically.
Okay, well that didn't quite play out like that.
It didn't happen. It basically is we start moving, and but let's get to it, and that'll explain itself.
Sure.
So Tate and some people were waiting for them on the edge of the forest, and Tindo's parents were there, Matteo and Pilar Leal. Yori was there, Kolina Wilton and Stancio Roybal, Abira and some other people as well. Not named, but some people that Akin didn't recognize. And when they arrived, Gabe asked about Macy, but he still hasn't arrived. So the conversation continued, but some chatting about Macy, and Akin tells them that he heard him going outside, but when he heard Neci, but doesn't know what happened to the man. And as they were sort of waiting for any more people to arrive, eventually Kolina decided to go get him, but Stancio suggested he should go instead because no one noticed him leaving anyway. And as they were about to leave, they told them that about the rendezvous point, north to the big river and then east along it, and then hugged Kolina, wishing her bringing Macy safely to them. Akin called Stancio and told him that he noticed that the man isn't looking so well. This is the same man, just for everyone. This is the same man that Akin saw lying drunk in the ditch when he first arrived in Phoenix. But he was sober now. But maybe there was something with him. Maybe Akin suggested to he could treat him before he goes. But the man only asks Akin if Mars is real, and when Akin tells him yes, Stancio just tells him focus on that and not to worry about them. And basically the chapter ends with Gabe lifting Akin up and all of them moving towards directing as they say in the rendezvous point, that actually was the Law Village. And that's where the book 2, Adulthood-Rites, finishes.
Comes to an end, yeah. So it seems like Macy and Stancio probably went back to Phoenix, and well, we don't know what happened to them, but they may have met with a sticky end.
Yeah, I feel like
was it Macy or Kolina?
Macy,
yeah.
Macy was there already, and then Kolina and Stancio were supposed to go get him, and I feel like will end up is basically none of them are going to join, because one, they're either going to be kept there or they're going to be killed by the crazy people from the...
Yeah, so we kind of have a little bit of history with Stancio. I don't really remember much about Kolina. So it's one of the things that I think might have made that hit just a little bit more, is if we'd had a couple more interactions between Akin and those two.
Yeah.
Back when he was in Phoenix at the earlier point.
Wasn't Stancio the man also who was teaching Akin in the salvaging side? I don't know why, but I have the strange feeling he was the man either explaining to Akin, there was those plastics, or he was the one who was cutting wood and telling Akin about the life of before the war. I have this strange feeling that it's one of those people. I would have to check, but
yeah, it could have been. And so there's quite a lot of names to keep straight in Phoenix. That's the other challenge.
Yeah, I can't remember names of people I've met in real life, and I will definitely not remember names of people I've read in the book. Especially when things happen for me, from my perspective, I don't know, like months ago.
Yeah.
That's really actually funny, because when I read this book, few chapters at a time before every recording, and a lot of the story takes months between the events, so in a way I sort of follow the storyline almost to the dot.
It's a bit more real time.
Yeah.
Okay then, should we talk a little bit about kind of the broader summary of this whole book?
So I've made sort of a summary of each part, sort of to remind everyone what was happening, and that's what I actually mentioned in the beginning of this episode, that this whole book was about Akin's life. So in part 1 we have when Akin was being born, in part 2 when he is being kidnapped and the whole journey, then in staying in Phoenix and learning about the humans, and then part 3 is about when he's nearly an adult before the metamorphosis, and then part 4, which we just covered, was basically Akin planning the steps to give another chance for humans to live as humans on Mars. So let's get to it, I guess. I will just briefly summarize each part, so feel free, Richard, to stop me whenever if you remember something.
Jump in if I have any commentary. Yeah.
Sure. So in part 1, the book starts with Akin, although at the time the name Akin was not known to us, but we already knew that it was a boy in Lilith's womb. And when the time comes, the boy is born, the story starts with him learning about his environment and his family. He also learns about Joseph, his biological father, because that's Joseph's sperm was used. It was preserved by Nikanj, and that he learns about that. He can sense the DNA, the genome of the being with. He uses his sensory tentacle that was in his tongue. And part 1, Law, basically tells us about his development and learning about his surroundings, the plants, the animals, life itself in general. And eventually we meet Tino, when Lilith and Akin are out foraging, who comes joins the village eventually. And one day, as Tino and Akin are out, several visitor men appear and almost kill Tino and kidnap Akin. And that's where the part 1 sort of the book finishes.
Yes, a really interesting perspective to open up on, right? Because we have kind of Akin's consciousness right from the start, right? Before he's even born.
Yep.
And we get to kind of experience some of his sensory capabilities that are not quite human. And
yeah, about the whole,
Yeah,
skin, like the light patches, light sensitive patches he can see technically through his skin, type of thing, and that the first time when he connects to Lilith, and she says like it was like basically a hot fire, like burning metal rod being put in her body, because he didn't know how to like control the pain. But Nikanj tells her like, oh, he's not gonna ever do it again. He's realized because he felt the pain she felt. And then when Tino approached and like Lilith is like hold tight, and then she just breaks Tino's basically massive bow with her hands, type of thing. So yeah, it was quite an interesting chapter, like the part basically, learning about a newborn baby who has basically consciousness of an adult, awareness of an adult, but still lack of the experience of an adult. So
yeah, and it's quite fun to, because we're kind of quite close perspective with Lilith in the first book.
Yep.
And then in the first part of this book, we get to see Lilith from other people's perspectives.
Yep.
And like it kind of really, like, from inside Lilith's head, like, she's kind of a very capable, intimidating kind of a person, right? She's like, you get that impression, right? She knows what she's doing. She's got it together. But then you see her from the outside, and it doubles down on that impression.
Yeah. Although you say that, but in first book it was a lot of things like her doubting herself, and her struggles and stuff like that. Like being waken up in the alien world. But she was always a badass character, a badass, like someone who was like, trying to follow up with, with whatever decision she had to make. She owned it, right? She owned her decisions. And then in the book 2, from the perspective, like when Akin's like, yeah, my mom is awesome, type of perspective, is just like, yeah, she is.
Yeah, it sort of comes without the color of some of her own internal doubts. So that's how it kind of drives the impression home, right?
Yeah. Although saying that we
great.
do have learned about the whole idea of like when Lilith just goes on her like journeys, right? When she's doubting her life, what her decision, when she's like, goes quiet and just, worries, but she's done it before, so they sort of ignore it in a way. But, there is still some aspect of her, like being a fragile human being, right?
Oh yeah. That's but even just like seeing the way that she handles that from the outside is still it's still a very interesting additional lens to have on her character.
Yep.
Because she just kind of goes off and deals with her frustrations.
Yeah.
And doesn't let it color her interactions with the
others.
The others. Yeah.
But yeah. So then we go into part 2, Phoenix, which tells a story about Akin's kidnapping and the journey to the village of Phoenix. We learn about the resistors that kidnap Akin, and being wary of Akin and trying to sell him to different villages on the way. But eventually, some of them befriend the boy. Some of them befriend, some of them get really scared of him. And on the way, one of the men dies because of an ulcer. And that really puts attention on the group. And eventually their travel ends in the Phoenix village, where Akin meets Tate, our old friend Tate, and tells her the truth about himself, that his mother is Lilith. And at some point in the story, a gunfight starts because Tino's father seeks revenge for his son on the people who kidnap Akin, and most of them die except for the man who actually is responsible for all of it.
Yeah.
And then the part basically continues on about with Akin's life in the village, meeting another pair of Oankali constructs, Amma and Shkacht, who are then taken to the salvage site to eventually escape because of potential psychopath, i.e. Neci, who wants to mutilate the girls in order to remove their tentacles and make them look more human-like. And Akin basically spends almost 2-3 years with the salvages, trying to learn as much as he can about the humans. And then after this long period of time, his mother and, well, his family comes and gets him.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, this sort of almost like permitted to come and get him by the Oankali consensus.
Yeah, basically they left him there to learn about the humans, and now it was time for Akin to be collected, and then, you know, spend 20 years in the part 3 basically going from village to village, shagging some other humans, and, you know, just spending on his life on journey, on wandering about.
So a couple of things in part 2,
a
couple of sort of themes that come up. So the whole journey of Akin with his kidnappers is an interesting one, right? Because this whole, as with so many of the things in Octavia's work, there's this interesting sort of complicated power dynamic, right? Because, you know, there's these full-grown adult men and like a year-old baby, but the baby's from the Oankali, and it's like inherently dangerous for them to even have it.
Yeah.
Because, you know, it will anger the Oankali and, you know, bring down their, not really their wrath per se, right? It's just, you know, they will like come in and take him back.
Yeah.
And there's not much they can do about it.
Yeah.
And then Akin was also, you know, he's dangerous in his own right? He has his autonomy. He's clever. He can listen. He can manipulate. He can sting. It's so there's that weird like balance, right? They've kidnapped him. They're abusing him to some degree, right? They're not treating him as they should a newborn, but then he also has this like little bit of an edge, and so it's a weird dynamic. And then we learn about the background of these guys who have just gone and like kidnapped this baby, and like, you know, they had families. They seemed like fairly functional human beings in the world prior to
the whole apocalypse taking place.
Yeah, and yeah, it's a very strange, complicated set of human interactions that we get there, which it's you know, always the case in the relationships that seem to be in Octavia's stuff.
Yeah. Also, if I may, we also learn about more about like the humans, you know, about the whole society after the whole apocalypse. You know, the whole Phoenix. You know, like when Gabe shows Akin the coin of the Phoenix with the cross on it, and explains, you know, the whole idea of them like trying to reconstruct Bible from memory type of thing. You know, like...
Yeah, we have this whole wider kind of what are the sociological as well as individual psychological consequences for this kind of little human group that is living here of being in the conditions that they're in, right? They have the Oankali kind of now distant, but like an obvious power that they can't compete with.
Yeah.
And no, they can't have kids, and they don't have any real like forward trajectory, right? There's no kind of overarching purpose for what their lives can be, because they're kind of just stuck in the shadow of the Oankali at this point.
Exactly.
And they've sort of lost purpose because of it. So you have various forms of kind of denial and attempts to find purpose in what they can, right? So they have this the religiosity, and some of them are just giving up on societal norms entirely and doing the whole raiding behavior. It's a real sort of mess and exploration of like what would happen to a human society without any kind of direction or purpose.
Exactly. You know, like trying to sort of, in a way, they were trying to remember and rebuild what there was originally, but then eventually hitting that inevitable boundary that stop, that basically, you know, you can do as much as, you know, as far as you go here, but without a proper function, you know, like functioning society that can cooperate with themselves, you will not go that far. So And that's exactly what happens in the book, towards the end in part 4, in fact. So
yeah, the futility of their situation is sort of getting to people, and you see the kind of the decline of that initial, maybe we can put some kind of purpose on this, but then it's just more and more people are having some kind of substance abuse issue or whatever else is going on.
Yeah, exactly. The whole idea of everybody raiding each other and stuff, like the physical atrocities they were doing to each other, and like it just shows that basically it's typical for decline of a society.
Just a descent into anime.
Yeah. But yeah, so I guess that was basically part 2, and then part 3 starts nearly 20 years after the part 2, when Akin is actually a young man in his wandering phase, going from village to village to his friends, as they described them, his female friends as was it the Akjai who
liaisons?
Yeah, like who said it to him that like, oh, I'm aware of your like what's Dichan's sister name of
Ahajas?
Yes, Ahajas, yes, that's she was like, Akin's she's Oankali, excuse me, Akin's Oankali mother. And she's like, yeah, I know about, all of those, like female friends you should probably say goodbye to, type of thing. So
I think Lilith was doing that too at one point, right?
Yeah.
When he was getting on the shuttle.
Yeah.
just generally mortified.
Yeah, basically when both of your mothers are just going like, maybe you should go to say goodbye to your female friends, and you're just like, Mom, please stop, you're embarrassing me, type of thing.
Yeah, definitely. That whole section had a few, like the trials and tribulations of adolescence.
Exactly. Yeah.
Thrown in there. Yeah.
So basically the part, in the part we begin on Earth initially with Dichan and Tino talking about Akin and his wandering phase, as they call it, and and the conversation eventually leads to discussion about humans being able to reproduce just by themselves without the presence of Oankali. And eventually leads to the decision that Akin needs to go onto the Oankali ship to learn about the Oankali part and be able to create a case for the Akjai humans. The journey would also be used to heal the broken bond between Akin and his sibling Tikuchak. Once on the ship, Dichan, who accompanied Akin and Tikuchak initially, introduces them to his side of family, and the family gets to know about Akin and his sibling, and when they feel their broken bond, the decision is made for them that they need a sub-adult Ooloi to heal them. Furthermore, Akin actually gets introduced to an Akjai Ooloi, the one of those original Ooloi, Oankali, where he gets to learn from them about the whole species. Eventually, the Akjai. Go on.
This whole section has some themes of kind of like Akin's learning is learning a bit more about the Oankali culture, right? Because he's been in the kind of the hybrid culture of the trading villages, and he's learning more about how the Oankali do things, how they communicate with their various kind of symbiotic organisms, I suppose, that are their technology, right? And how their sort of consensus works and all that stuff, right? And so there's a sort of there's a theme there of like this sort of the challenges of like cross-cultural communication, because you kind of understand through Akin's experience of the Oankali culture and his experience of the human culture, like where the sources of like misunderstanding are, like how it is that the Oankali have made the errors that they've made in the understandings of the human because of their particular blind spots. So it's like because of the things that they believe about what they think that if they gave the humans an Akjai, it would be doomed, and that would just be cruel in the long run. So that's kind of like you get their justification for it, and then they have this whole thing of not like they can't really lie in their mode of communication, and they don't really understand like storytelling and kind of allegorical stuff as a component of human culture.
Yeah.
We get that early on with like Akin's like, this is a lie, but it's a story and it's kind of a metaphor for a thing.
Yes.
And that kind of disjoint, because the Oankali have this fusion between their biology and their culture at a much tighter level than humans currently do, that leads to a sort of miscommunication about the nature of human culture and what it would mean to preserve human culture, because so much of it's still external to the human biology. So they kind of think they're keeping them or keeping their culture going with what they've given them, but they're not. And yeah, you kind of come to understand this whole, like, how this mishandling took place, and despite the Oankali's kind of, respect for the autonomy of people, in theory, their like inability to understand this and their kind of arrogance about their correctness and thinking that they've understood, this kind of illusion of transparency that they've had, has caused all this human pain and suffering.
Exactly. Yeah. No, absolutely. You're absolutely correct in here. It's pretty stark contrast when we're back on the ship again with the whole idea of like how the Oankali live, and especially the Akjai Oankali, right? The fact that there exists, the just in case Oankali, that have this original shape of a slug type of thing that's, that was modified
like
whenever like
giant caterpillar thing.
Yeah, more like a caterpillar thing, yeah. That was like that they changed their form to resemble more human-like shape when they first encounter Earth. So there is this dissonance between what the Oankali say and what they actually do, type of thing, or rather misunderstanding of what humans want and what the Oankali want, and the Oankali's actions.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think it's kind of a like the Oankali have misunderstood, and they're in a position of power over the humans.
Yeah.
So there's not like sufficient opportunity for resistance by the humans to correct their misunderstanding.
Yeah.
And potentially for them to get along more as equals. Because of the asymmetry in the power of this relationship, the Oankali have free reign to do what they want, and the humans can't really
do anything about it.
Adequately make their case.
Yeah, absolutely. So eventually I had the Akjai who was introduced, the Akjai Ooloi who was introduced to Akin, learns about Akin's story and agrees there needs to be something done about humans being able to live and reproduce by themselves. Right, so that's when Akin is actually introduced to Dekiacht, a potential, also introduced to Dekiacht, a potential sub-adult Ooloi partner, and its presence, very intriguing, as often described in the book, helps to smooth the bond between Akin and T. And one day, Akin teaches Dekiacht and Tikuchak about his experience as a child, and them basically going to Dekiacht going to his family and T going to his family and blah type of thing, triggers the consensus meeting, which ends with the decision that Akin will have to learn the means to create a planet, in this case Mars, for humans to live by themselves. So it's for me, it's the fact that the Oankali sent a child to be kidnapped, and then they never rescued him. They rescued him only after 3 years of living with the humans, to actually find and realize that the humans need to have also the same chance as the Oankali. The whole having Akjai, human Akjai Oankali type of thing.
Mm-hmm.
It took them I don't know, like 300 years of studying humans to come down to that conclusion in general.
I suppose actually. Yeah. Because they had everyone on ice, quote unquote, for quite a while, didn't they?
It was like 250 years after the whole, in the book one, we were told 250 years. Then we know that Lilith spent few years on, like 2-3 years on the ship after awakening. Then we know that it's being like around 7-8 years after the events of book 1, because Lilith already had, the village of law was established. Lilith had a few more children, and then obviously
we had 20-year time skip.
Yeah, and then the 20 years time skip for Akin, and basically, and then so it's around. We're talking about 300 plus years of, for the Oankali to realize that, actually, with a species that actually is as intelligent as us, because, capable of the same intelligence, they need also have the ability to have the choice. But obviously, they can't have the choice because the Earth is going to be stripped of all of the nutrients and biomass and all the elements for the future ship. So...
Yep. Yeah, it's they're a little bit slow on the uptake there.
Yeah, that I guess it's type of thing with fantasy elves type of thing. Like, they live so long that they for them passage of time is just nothing but like a blink of eye. 100 years is just blink of eye.
I mean, one of the other there are definitely kind of parallels and metaphors for colonial occupation.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
Right. That's clearly a thematic thing.
I mean, that's exactly what happened, right? Right. So it's now we've exploited the area enough, and we'll consider giving you your independence rights. Like, thanks.
Yeah, and I think that the 300-year time scale is not completely out of line with the sort of things that happen in history here. Yeah. And it's an interesting challenge, right? Because as a story about colonialism, this one is really interestingly nuanced, right? Because the Oankali are they're not totally painted as the bad guys in this whole thing.
Exactly. It's very grey-like, right?
Yeah. It's every aspect of it's grey. All the interpersonal relationships are grey. The whole interaction between the Oankali and the human race is grey.
The whole nature of the Oankali,
the sexuality is grey.
Yeah, exactly. The whole the whole aspect of Oankali. They are bound to that trade, as they call it. But we call it a trade, but in their language, it's but much more nuanced because it's like the most intimate thing for that ever exists. Exchange of genome with species that is completely different to you, type of thing.
Yeah, it's a genetic trade.
Yeah,
that's got some pretty intimate connotations in human culture.
Yeah, exactly. So, and the whole fact that it's a 5+ family type of thing, with an Ulo in the middle, it's not a patriarchal or matriarchal type of family. It's an ultriarchal.
With the Ooloiarchy.
Yeah, Ooloiarchy. Yeah. You always correct me, and I always am not sure. I always forget.
I don't know. I'm making that one up.
Yeah. So it's pretty completely alien type of behavior, but it's always nuanced. It's it is colonialism, and always was, and it always will be type of thing. It's like the meme, with the astronauts and the other one holding a gun behind the other ones. It's so always been colonialism. Has it always been colonialism? It always has. It's
no, but it's I think an interesting aspect of the sort of the thing that Octavia does with a lot of her writing seems to be she adds in all of that grey to kind of force you to think about it in a nuanced way.
Yes.
Right? Because it takes a situation that's complex in a human context and then adds a couple of extra weird elements that just add difficulty and complexity to thinking about the nature of the relationships and stuff. And I think that forces you to re-examine not only the complexity of the dynamics in the world that she's created, but also in the real world.
Yeah. No, absolutely. And the fact is that it makes you think about both sides, right? From the perspective of both sides. Although we don't know about the Oankali side much because they're so alien. Basically, Octavia never actually showed the perspective on an Oankali until we meet Akin, who's the blend between the human and the Oankali, right? And that only is the only time when we actually learn a bit of the perspective of the wanting to learn about the nature and wanting but the books always makes you think about the other side's perspective. It's not like one side of this is a villain, throughout the whole book.
Yeah, there's no cookie cutter bad guys.
Yeah, exactly.
For the most part.
Yeah.
Right.
There technically is no bad guys, because at some point the bad guys in the books were the humans, right? The resistor villages who were raiding, innocent people, right? But realistically, those people were basically desperate to live as they used to do, right?
Yeah. I mean, it's like we said with the earlier with the guys who kidnapped Akin.
Yeah.
Right? In their former lives, they were
normal humans.
Apparently, normal functional people.
Exactly. So it's just like at this point, it feels to me like this book really makes you think about, full stop, right? It's not like she doesn't throw obvious, this is bad, right? She actually makes you consider all of the sides of the conflict. And I think it's fantastic that it makes you do that, because then you realize the right perspective is that we do certain things because we're bound to do them, because there's a lot of as she said, the conflict, the contradiction in the humans, right? The hierarchical type of thing, that with the necessity of survival, us versus them, versus intelligence. The humanity is only the reason Homo sapiens species is so successful is because we created communities that can survive together and that can take care of each other. And that's the whole idea about it, it's, but put in a way that we have aliens, right? So
yeah. I mean, the Oankali, they come in with their own way of wanting to do things, and they find the humans having literally just blown themselves up.
Yeah.
And the remnants of that. So they're kind of coming in as the humans weren't really going to survive unless the Oankali had come in and done something. So they kind of saved the human race, but at the same time, then all of how they went about handling that subsequently has a lot of problems associated with it. And it's so it's just so whenever you think okay, I can put this character in a box. There's always at least something.
There's always a fuzzy edge on the box, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, there's a few people where it kind of leans in a bit Neci or Neci, whatever the pronunciation is for her. Kind of leans pretty negatively.
Kaguya, don't forget Kaguya. I mean, to be honest, now we can't put them in the same box, but Kaguya is basically an asshole. His character is basically a sarcastic asshole, but but it's nothing compared to Neci, right? Has a couple
of really big characteristics,
right? Yeah. So that woman was basically made, but I feel like she we throw we throw dirt at her, but in reality, she's a desperate woman who wants to have children. And then by the end of part 4, she basically gives up on her life and basically just succumbs to drunk, as you said, drugs or basically alcohol in this case, and basically gives up and is willing to go as far because she lost her humanity as such, if you would say.
Yeah, so the bad guys are all pretty tragic characters.
Yeah,
yeah.
She's basically a result. I can imagine her being a Karen in normal life, basically just being a obnoxious type of person and doing stuff just because pushing the limits of things, just because someone doesn't know she will do it type of character. But in the same time, she's the result of the environment she was brought in, right? So
and I think that actually brings it to one of the other big themes is environment versus biology or nature or whatever you want to frame that
nurture
as.
Versus nature, right? Type of thing.
Yeah. That's a massive underlying theme, both in the way the humans act and the Oankali act, and the whole nature of the exchange of genes and the attitude that the Oankali have towards the humans because they think they're genetically flawed. This, that whole situation is just like you add the additional piece of complexity of the Oankali have this ability to manipulate their own biology and the biology of all the stuff that's around them, and that it's like that recurses and reflects on their culture as well.
Exactly.
So it's
although there is an aspect of influence of environment on them. So we do learn that in case of stressful environment, the species that the babies that are born will go toward turn into Ooloi, because Oolois have the highest chance of survival, because they have the highest sort of control over the genetic manipulation and type of skill. But like it's mostly nature, right, in their case.
But also, I mean, just there's a lot of stuff that's very environmental, like the fact that Akin is separated from his sister,
his sibling,
sibling. Oh yeah.
Because we actually still don't know what sex the Tikuchak pick actually.
I think T settled on being male.
I think at the end he started spending more time with Dichan, but I don't think we actually learn at the end what was the final result.
Yeah. Anyway, Akin's sibling, right? His whole relationship with them was like, which sex they would end up and how their relationship would pan out was all dependent on them having an environmental exposure to one another. So you have this a really great reflection of the kind of the biological reality of this stuff, which is that the environment dictates how your biology is expressed, right? A lot of the stuff in our biology is conditional. It's not predetermined, right? That's a very common source of kind of like misunderstanding when people say something is genetic, right? Just because it's genetic doesn't mean it's determined. It's probabilistic and it interacts with environmental cues.
Yes, that's debatable, but for most of the cases you're right. Yes, that's absolutely correct.
I mean, there are the obvious exceptions of like your classically Mendelian inherited conditions where like it's your probability is basically 1 that the thing's going to be a problem. Or even sometimes in those, like there have been instances where people have found people with mutations that we thought was the cause of like a serious inherited Mendelian condition, but they seemed fine. And there's some other compensating effect in somewhere else in the genome that we didn't really get. So
yes, you're absolutely right. It's always like it's a balance of things, and sometimes the balance goes in a weird way that technically shouldn't work but works, because evolution just does things for as long as you survive. It doesn't matter how it got there as long as you propagate your genes, right? So that's
evolution's a hack.
Yeah, basically it's just whatever floats boats, as long as it survive and you reproduce, off you go. But it's the whole idea of those Oankali and the human nature, and how, and the bridge of the Oankali and the humans, the constructs, right? Being I don't know, for me it just feels like Octavia Butler really did a fantastic job on addressing those questions, like in non-direct way, in a way that it makes you think about, because to be fair, you would read this book and think about like, oh yeah, Neci's a bitch, and Kaguya was an asshole, blah blah, but when you actually think about it, a lot of those characters that we meet are a result of something that happened before. And it's told in a way that is just, it's indirect, but it also tells us that like you need to pay attention to what you're reading. It's not black and white, and you need to realize that. And it also, as you mentioned, there are nuances to colonialism, but at the same time, like for all the bad things that colonialism resulted with, it did bring some good things to the societies, right? Structure and stuff like that. Now, don't get me wrong. I would never be for colonialism. But I'm saying that there is some aspect that it brings to the societal, changes.
Oh yeah, definitely, and the plenty of aspects of kind of modern medicine and all the like of it.
Yes, exactly.
Kind of all sorts of aspects of modernity had a lot of utility, but like the way that the politics played out and the way that all of the various people suffered horrendously in the process, that very much a problem.
Yeah, exactly. So, but in the same,
and I think in this book that I think the Oankali do get a bit of a running start because of the degree to which humanity is in dire straits.
Yes.
When they show up.
Yeah.
Right. So I think in some ways it would be very interesting to see the parallel version of this where the Oankali shows up and humanity hasn't blown itself up yet.
Yeah.
Right. Like, what does that look like? But yeah.
No, absolutely. So yeah, I guess let's finalize the summary of the book with part 4 summary. So with part 4, we start with Akin back on Earth from the ship, planning his next steps, and the first step is to visit the place he has not seen since 20 years ago when he was a child, the village of Phoenix. And Akin goes back, and basically now the place looks shabbier and dirtier. People, some people drunk on the streets, sleeping in the ditches, and village at the Phoenix village doing what the other village were doing, collecting guns and doing raids on other places because people lost hope and are just bored of their minds. There he meets Tate and Gabe, and tells them about the Mars, but with Tate being in danger of dying due to a fall that happened to her just before Akin's arrival, 2 or 3 months before his arrival. Akin goes and tries to heal her, but just to be interrupted by anxious Gabe. The interruption leads to Akin's premature metamorphosis starting, and the boy spending a few months in stasis. And as he slowly regains his ability to communicate with the outside world, he convinces more and more people about Mars to eventually end up escaping the village due to some people trying to kill him by setting Gabe and Tate's house on fire, but managing to survive and going with the few people who want to live on Mars, who want to build a place that they can live as humans with him. So going towards the village of Lo, and that's where basically part 4 finishes.
Yeah, I just had a thought that maybe this, maybe the metamorphosis stuff here serves as a bit of almost like a biblical allegory, right? You've got kind of a rebirth component to metamorphosis.
It could be.
Akin's a bit of a savior figure for that branch of humanity.
Yeah,
like a lot more grey.
A lot more grey, a lot more tentacles. Basically, Cthulhu is our savior.
Yeah, looks less appealing than the Christian version, right?
Yeah,
it's always buff Jesus.
Yeah, I wonder how much influence did Lovecraft have on the shape of the Oankali.
I don't know. Yeah, that would be interesting. But yeah, there is a certain Lovecraftian horror aspect to the appearance of the Oankali. Yeah, don't know what it is about tentacles, but
I don't know. Everybody loves tentacles for some reason.
Yeah, got kind of a gods of the outer darkness coming in from outside after a massive destructive event. Yeah, it's got I can see it.
So yeah, it's being basically, as I mentioned earlier, this whole book was about Akin's life and him becoming the Messiah, as we joked a lot, previous episodes, with Paul Atreides being the Messiah from Dune, that we have Akin being the Messiah for the humanity.
I mean, like, it's not really. I mean,
he's my Messiah, Richard. He's my Messiah. How dare you?
Yeah, he's like a much more kind of grounded version of the Messiah, right? He's not really like, he's not coming in as like an external savior, right? In the same way that the it's not the sort of white savior trope, right?
Yeah.
It's not really that, because he's a mix.
To be fair, sorry for interrupting, but like, to be fair, I feel like it could be a long con by the Oankali, right? His whole life was like preparation for this decision, in a way. As a child, he was left so that he could learn about the humans, because maybe some smarter Oankali realized that the Oankali cannot accept that, what humanity needs. And to reject that whole idea of like, no, we trade, meaning that we trade and you have no other choice. So they created a being that was able to understand that, and that who proposed the idea of like, they need, human Akjai, and then who would be basically become the, the leading messiah to survive. So basically, maybe it is a long con by the Oankali.
It does have certain echoes of the Bene Gesserit, the breeding for the Kwisatz Haderach. It's the whole that whole like long plan of genetic engineering and planting the seeds of the religion in various places. I mean, it has elements of a kind of savior trope, but he's not. It also has like I said, grey.
Yeah.
So there's always a grey version, right? And then he's not really ever in a position where he's like adulated as a savior. Right? The last scene of this book is like, they're burning the place down, and he's on the verge of being killed only by like a shred of doubt in the mind of one of the guys who's not going to follow him as the Messiah. Is he spared? So it's
absolutely. Yeah,
a complicated version of it.
Yeah. No, it's just it was an interesting book, and like there's a lot of things we discussed. I mean, in previous episodes, if like topics we've discussed, we've summarized a lot of them before. In this part 4 we just finished, we only talked about things like hypothermia, cryopreservation, microwaves, and nutrition height. So there wasn't that much of science that we talked of.
Yeah, I think a lot of the fundamentals had already been introduced earlier on.
Yes. So a lot of more stuff was talked about in the previous part. I think in part 2 or 3 we talked about a lot of topics simply because there was a lot of things to talk about. But in general, this book has had not that many we do love go on tangent, and we always will find a way to introduce some weird topic, just put on a brief mentioning of something in the book.
I managed to shoehorn my idea for nuclear isotope enrichment into the last episode.
I mean, yes, we did manage to do that. Forget like that. Yeah, we managed to, like, how to enrich uranium in an organic. I'm sure we are now on some FBI list of watch list, but
I think we were probably already on that list.
Yeah, so that's that.
At least I was.
But so hi all of our FBI agents. I hope you're doing well. But in all seriousness, so we haven't had that many topics, but we always manage to have some interesting conversation. But to be honest, I'm looking forward to the book 3, because if it's going to be on whole Mars situation, how they're terraforming, we're gonna have a ball of fun to talk about, how would we do it and how can we do it, type of thing. So
yeah, there's definitely some interesting stuff to talk about in that.
Yeah. So yeah.
So on that note, what are your predictions for the next book?
Okay, so chapter 1 for the book 3, I feel like it's going to definitely start. It's as we mentioned, this is continuation. The book is going to be continuation of the story, so it's definitely going to start with humans congregating somewhere, probably in law, getting ready to join Akin to go to Mars and, start terraforming, learning how to survive. So obviously some humans will be like, around low, bit, worried about, but like Akin's gonna be like, okay, those who want to, are ready to, probably try to survive and help me, let's go to Mars. Those will start, and then some humans will be like getting prepared for going to Mars. I don't know how, because we know that maybe Oankali will not help them, but I think that they're gonna give them some sort of shuttling.
Didn't they mention something about shuttles?
I don't know, because in previous episode we said like, the previous part I don't remember, but basically mentioning like, we will not help them going to Mars, but I feel like they will. There's no like, there's definitely going to be some sort of assistance to go to Mars.
Yeah, I think at the very least they're going to have to learn on some shuttles, because otherwise I don't know what's gonna. I don't know how that's gonna work.
So definitely that's that, but like it's going to be a continuation of the book 2, basically. Like they're gonna continue from there. But I feel like in general, I think the whole story is going to be about the planet Mars. Humans trying to survive, and maybe there's gonna be some retrospect or some like switching back to Earth. The whole idea of like, okay, with them, them just waiting for the rest of the humans that are there, that resisted, to die off. And basically, once they all die off, that the whole planet is going to be stripped mined from everything it can. Then, but that's going to take, several decades still, or at least not centuries.
Okay. Yeah.
But yeah, there's gonna definitely there's gonna be some like there's gonna be a situation where some resistance is gonna be like, those Oankali are like, they're taking those humans somewhere on the ship. Either it's definitely not Mars. Let's raid them or something. Let's wage war against them, type of thing.
Okay. Wow. So we had some time skips.
Oh yeah.
Between last book and this book, and within this book and within the previous book. Do you anticipate?
No, because I mean, like, if there's going to be a time skip, because the book finished as they were going to law, so I feel like there has to be like the continuation, like all of them arriving in law. Tate and Gabe meeting Lilith, and then like Lilith is like, hi Tate, fuck you Gabe, and Gabe is like, fuck you Lilith, type of thing. But they sort of like realize, yeah, Akin's my son, he's helping you. And Gabe is like, no way, Akin is your son. Oh my god, my whole life was a lie, type of, drama.
Okay, yeah. And any predictions about any new characters? So we had kind of our protagonist in first book is Lilith, and then we've
Akin.
got Akin as the protagonist.
I mean, it's a good point. I mean, like if the third book, like if Octavia would introduce a third character, maybe. But it feels to me that Akin has to continue being the protagonist in a way, because I mean it still has to be his perspective to be like the one, right? The one who leads the it's his perspective of going to Mars and doing the Mars terraforming and dealing with all that stuff. But although it might be that Octavia would be like, no, Akin is on Mars doing his job, nobody, like, no drama because everybody's working hard to survive. So maybe we have to introduce another character. I don't know. It could be. Here's the potential. Maybe a construct Ooloi. Now it's time for them, because like the Oankali are like, okay, if the humans are supposed to have human babies, then maybe it's time to introduce a construct Ooloi type of thing. Don't know.
Okay. Right.
But it's
I'll start asking probing questions.
No, but to be fair, I don't know about that. It feels it, but there's the mentioning. Maybe at the end of the book 3, they will be like, a construct Ooloi has appeared on Earth or on Mars or type of thing, but I think it would be mostly Akin.
Okay. Right. Well, yeah, I'm looking forward to.
No, I'm also looking forward to the book. Yeah, it's gonna be great. Like, it's it's final. It's exciting. It's the final book. There has to be some sort of conclusion. So, not like in Twilight where they were all supposed to fight, and then at the end it was just like a hallucination, and they're like, okay, that's fine. We forgive you, type of thing. It's just like, fucking hell. talk about disappointment.
Now we're ending the episode on a twilight. Come on, man.
You're very welcome. I don't know why it came, but I feel like I've, just proves what things I've read as a teenager. But yeah, before we finish, I guess it's good to point out that the next episode, we may or may not take a break between episodes as we did in the previous one, the books was finished, but the next episode is going to be a special episode. Yes. And we decided a bit different format. Actually, this time we will utilize Richard's idea and actually his expertise on aging. And actually, we've decided that our discourse about Richard wants to be immortal and I think it's a bad idea debate. And basically, we will. The episode is going to be us discussing back and forth, for and against for immortality. So I guess it's be really interesting to discuss. Well, I think we'll maybe take a break from recording to prepare more for that debate, because I'm sure there's going to be a lot of things to discuss. And
yeah, we'll let it be known when we're going to release the next one, but it won't be too long.
Yeah. If not the next release time, so not in 2 weeks, it's going to be definitely in after that, so sometime soon.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So yeah, thank you very much everyone for following us with book, following us who were listening to us on the us going through the book to Adulthood-Rites. It was a fantastic journey. It was a great book, and all the places we upload our episodes by now you should all know, but if you don't, it's xenothesis.com. And yeah, I was Michael Glinka. Thank you very much.
And I was Richard Acton.
Goodbye. Bye.